Toll tariffs on national roads are going up from tomorrow. This includes the increase in fees for the controversial e-tolls in Gauteng. So to talk more about this, we're joined now by Wayne Duvenage, who's the CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, or Outa for short. Wayne, thanks a lot. Always a pleasure to have you.
Yep.
This time, obviously, around SANRAL increasing its toll fees, and one saying that for the implementation as well as the infrastructure development of our local roads. Do you buy it?
Yeah, look, I mean, the toll tariffs go up every year at this time, and it's not only the e-toll tariffs, it's around the country. They have to be gazetted. They have to be gazetted at least 3 weeks before the tariffs go up. And I think in this period where there's some indecision and they still have to finalise the decision on e-tolls, they had no choice but to put the toll tariffs up. What people are reading in that, and we believe misreading it, is that tolls will continue, or the e-tolls will continue. We're saying that's not the case. It's just a formality, because when you read into the minister's speech, the finance minister's speech and others, they've already said that an alternative funding mechanism needs to be found. So this is just a formality. It's not going to be around.
So when you're saying that, are you saying that then what we're going to be seeing and what South Africans must brace themselves for is for the national toll fee to actually be increasing at a significant portion so that they can mitigate against the e-tolls that would have been implemented, or how would they be working?
No, they won't necessarily push up all the other tolls. So you've got the long-distance toll routes, which are boom-down tolling. They have a 100% hit rate. E-tolling is a drive now, pay later scheme, and that only has a 20% hit rate. So all the tariffs go up at the same time, and they've been going up quite a lot if you look at the last decade or more than CPI. So those tariffs are high as well. They need to be challenged. But as far as the e-toll matter is concerned, Gauteng's or SANRAL have been receiving about 1.9 billion rand every year from Treasury anyway to offset the Gauteng freeway bonds. So they've been receiving the money, and they're just not getting it through the tolling mechanism. So they're going to have to scrap it.
Well, they always keep saying that they've got bills to pay as well as they've got debtors to pay and to mitigate against the debt in itself. At this point, do you think that there will ever be a concrete decision and a concrete pronouncement on e-tolls in Gauteng?
Well, they've said they will. They've said they're going to make that decision last year in October, then they said November, then 16th of December, then the 1st.
Hence why I'm asking this question, Wayne, that are we ever going to get to a place where we're not pushing this out? Because it almost appears as though the e-tolling conversation is subject to politics, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the political agenda and the political climate is at the time, that's when we actually have a robust conversation, or not have a conversation about e-tolls.
So all they're doing right now is they're collecting about between 50 and 60 million rand a month, and they're paying that straight over to the collection process. It makes no sense to collect money to pay for the collection process. Nothing is going into the tarmac. Nothing's going into those bonds. So it really is senseless. A year ago, in March last year, SANRAL stopped issuing summonses. They've stopped going for default judgments. So they're not even enforcing anymore. So when you don't enforce, your compliance drops off even further, and you're not collecting anything really to offset the bond. So our view is that the scheme has collapsed. People aren't paying and nobody can enforce it. Government's legitimacy is in a crisis on the e-toll matter. And it needs to make a decision. But if it wants to just keep kicking this can down the road, then we turn to the last 20% and say, you're the only people who are keeping this scheme on a life support. And the minute
Why are the last 20% actually keeping this scheme on life support? Is it because there are law-abiding citizens of the province, and therefore they want to have their due diligence done? Why do we still have that 20%?
Well, it's corporates. They don't like to pick a fight with government. If they want to be on government's procurements list, they say that you have to be paying your e-tolls, and it's government departments. In fact, a lot of government departments aren't even paying their e-toll bills. And then it's a few compliant individuals. Corporates pass the costs on to their customers, the car rental companies, the courier companies, and so on. The customers end up picking it up. So they just want to keep in line with government and don't want to cross swords.
It's quite an interesting one, especially when it comes to speaking about the tolling fees, because one has to look at it and leverage it against whether or not South Africans can actually afford at this particular moment in time. And this has been a big conversation around, can South Africans actually afford to be paying for higher toll fees? Not that it does not increase every year, but really, can we afford it?
Well, this is the thing. We need to question long-distance toll concessionaires. We believe that there are private companies making far too much money on those tolls. So we have written to SANRAL. We are sending PI applications in to get the contracts. We want to have a deep look at those. As far as the e-toll matter goes, government is not going to suck the 11 to 15 billion rand out of the system to pay for the past debt. And remember, these are what we call social infrastructure. These are roads that we use every day to get to and from work. And the scheme itself was always an inefficient one, because you can't have user-pay schemes where most of the users don't pay. It just doesn't work. And then on top of that, there's this whole question mark around the ETC company, where SANRAL told us won the tender at, I think it was about 6.2 billion, and when you find out in the end, they actually got it at 9.9 billion. That stinks of corruption, and people will not participate in schemes like this anymore when corruption is written all over it.
Wayne, always a pleasure. We're going to leave it there for now. I mean, looking at the affordability, where are we when it comes to the South African context of paying for our roads? We can expect that toll tariffs that are going to be increasing on all national roads. It is happening from March, so be sure that you make budget for that, and just know that it is coming out, whether or not you want to. It is going to be happening. It's a phenomenon in the South African context.